Hi everybody, Rob here from the Oyster House Boys, and in this video we're going to take a look at integrating other instruments into Eurorack, or using Eurorack as an effects processor or audio processor for external instruments. And this could be anything from a drum kit, mic'd up acoustic piano, a guitar, bass, anything really. For this example I'm going to use my Fender Parallel Universe Strat Tele Hybrid. You can see here this is just a 3 single coils, and it's got your standard kind of strap setup. It just happens to be tele shaped. Anyway, single coils, quite bright. There may be a little bit of hum and noise, which is, you know, part and parcel of having a Strat. But the first thing we need to do is look at getting our signal into Eurorack. Now there are a bunch of different ways of doing this. One would be to use something like this, the Strymon AA1. So you could plug a guitar into here and then take this output, these two outputs here, into Eurorack, and then you could go back into here from your Eurorack, and then from here out into your audio interface. Now I am going to use these as an output, so everything done in Eurorack is going to go into these two ports here, and then go into my universal audio interface, and then direct into Logic. Just for clarity, there's nothing going on in Logic other than pure recording. Everything else will be done in the rig. Now, rather than using this as my input device, I'm actually going to take my guitar signal and put it straight into ears. Mutable ears has a few benefits. One, it has an amplifier built in, so you can lift your signal into Eurorack kind of levels. Also, as well as having just the in and out, which you have from something like the AA1, you also have an envelope follower and a gate, and those two things make it particularly useful. Now there is one drawback or caveat to using something like ears, and that's the fact that the patch points are all 3.5mm. So you're going to either need to use an adapter or a cable like this one, which has the two ends on it. So I'm going to plug one into my guitar, and the other one will go to the input, which overrides the contact mic. Let's just hear our clear signal. Let's get a cable and plug that into one of the inputs on AA1, and we'll take the out here. Okay, so I'll just play through the tones quickly as well. So this is the neck pickup, which is fairly warm. My low E is tuned down to a D, which I do quite a lot. And I'll just go to the bridge pickup, which is a lot brighter. Okay, so let's have a look at some ideas of how we can use Eurorack to process our guitar signal. Do keep in mind that even though I'm using a guitar, it really can be used for all sorts of uses. Okay, so let's just take that out from there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Ghost, and Ghost is actually available as like a pedal in pedal format, and it has a lot of features built into it. So let's plug ears into one of the inputs of Ghost, and then let's take one of the outputs from Ghost. Biscuit, quiet! Oi! Stop it. Yeah, and we'll take the output from Ghost and plug it into one of the inputs here. Now we could use both because Ghost is stereo out. In fact, let's just do that just for the sake of having it done, because we can get some nice effects from that. Right, so I'm going to go back to the neck pickup. I prefer it slightly warm, although there is maybe a touch high on the bass end, but we can filter that out. And that's the first thing that Eurorack is really good for. You can filter, you could use EQs, all sorts of things, but filters just sound particularly nice. And the fact that you can add some resonance is particularly useful as well. So I'm going to crank the resonance up to about 11. And Ghost's filter is like a DJ style filter, so it's high pass to the right and low pass to the left. And this is really useful, which we'll come back to in a minute when you start combining it with the envelope follower. But first let's just look at adding a bit of delay. Okay, so we've got a simple delay here. Sounds great. We could add a bit of reverb as well. Okay, so we've got delay, we've got reverb, we've got filter, we've got some compression should we need it, we've got input and output levels there. But something else we can do, there's also a sidechain, but we'll ignore that for here. We have distortion. So I'm going to really crank the distortion up to probably about 4 o'clock. That's a lovely sounding distortion, but we can do something quite fun with this. We can take a patch cable. In fact, this cable's a bit long, but it should show you what I'm trying to talk about. So I'm going to plug that from the envelope follower, and I'm going to put it into the distortion CV. And well, I've said that now, and it's died on me. Right, let's just choose a shorter cable then. Let's go envelope follower into distortion CV. We may need to tweak this level just a touch. Right, so on ears, you can see that as I strike the note, we're getting a brighter LED. We do also get a level here, but it's kind of a fixed value. It's just kind of on or off. You can see it flickers as the tails come through. So what this enables us to do is use the envelope follower to control the amount of distortion that we're getting in our signal. So if I play quite gently, so hopefully you can see and hear what's going on there. So you're playing more delicately, and you're getting a nice clean signal. But as soon as you really kind of like attack the strings a bit harder, you're getting a nice distorted sound. And what I like about this is, because I play a lot of guitar and I use a tube amp, this is kind of more akin to using a tube amplifier where picking dynamics have much greater effect than using like a solid state amp, and even some of the modelers don't quite nail this right yet. So it's really good for that, and you can balance it out, and obviously you can combine this with other things. You could use, in fact, well, let's do that. Let's look at using the same envelope follower to, let's take another cable. Let's put the envelope follower into Batumi. Actually, before I connect that, let's just see what Batumi does. This is Batumi 2, by the way, which is one of my favourite LFOs. I'm just going to take the sine wave out and I'm going to put that into my my resonance CV. Well, let's just turn that down a bit. So you can see the LED on Batumi is determining the rate of change of the resonance. I'm just going to reduce that a bit. And there are some definite use cases for this, but how about if we controlled this using our envelope follower? So I have the envelope follower plugged there. I'm going to patch that into Batumi. So now the cycle of the LFO starts when the envelope follower picks up that stronger signal. I need this to be... I may have a dead cable because that isn't working. Let's try a different one. Oh, I should also be in blue mode, I think, for this to work. Right, so if I plug that into there. There we go. So it will continually cycle. But if I strike a note hard enough, the envelope follower is going to pick it up and it's going to reset that cycle. So it's taking over control of this sine wave. It'd be quite interesting to put that into the frequency CV as well, actually. Let's go for low pass here and we'll pull this and stick it into there. If I slow that down, it might be a bit more obvious, actually. Cool. Okay, so we could obviously do things like we could combine that, so we could put the envelope follower output into a buffered mult. Actually, any mult would work for this. It's not pitch dependent, so I wouldn't worry too much. And then you could send that mult to both of these places and combine those effects, much as you would with most Eurorack patches. You know, you can be as simple or as complicated as you like. Now, something else you can do is, I'm not too keen on the reverb from Ghost for certain things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the output and I'm going to patch this into ZDSP, my favourite reverb for Eurorack. I'm going to ditch that effect for now. And let's just... Right, so I've got input going into Ghost, Ghost going into ZDSP. I think this is just set to a room at the moment. Obviously it helps if you output again. Okay. So this is just a nice room. Cool. Now, obviously there are some guitar pedals which would work for making massive ambient patches as well, but being in Eurorack land means that we have the flexibility of choosing reverbs from different places, combining them with other effects. We can use gates and envelope followers and LFOs and all sorts of things to create really complex, interesting patches, should you so wish. So I'm just going to play that same phrase again. I mean, there are some guitar pedals that will give you tails like that and that kind of richness, but not so many, and they cost a lot of money, and it does also mean another power supply and having another box somewhere, and then there's the routing things, different types of cables. Keeping it all in a rig like this means that you can stick this in a carry bag, take it to your gig, and off you go. Or if you have a monster Eurorack setup, you have all of the flexibility that comes along with that. So I'm going to crank it even higher. I'm just going to increase the levels of that. It's a bit quiet. Now I think that sounds really good to my ear, and you'd be hard pushed to get a similar sound. Don't forget I've got the highs cut slightly from, or no, the lows. In fact, I'm using a low pass filter here, so the highs are cut, and you can almost bring that level down a bit. And a bit of delay. Got the reverb from here. This is giving those kind of like, so I'll just preface this sentence by saying I've got a lapel mic on at the moment, and it's probably picking up the sound of the guitar sitting on my lap. So just bear that in mind. But you can use this almost as like a sampled guitar sound, which has been, butchered and tweaked and twisted, a bit like something maybe Mike Oldfield would do. Anyway. I digress. So, being in Eurorack, like I say, we have all the opportunities given us for other things. So let's take the output from Ghost and swap it so that we're now outputting from Colour, which is a fantastic new module from Modbap. Really like this one. I need to give that an input from Ghost. So I'll take input. I'm just going to turn my filter back up, mostly to full again, and plug that into here. Now let me just turn these down. So Colours is quite a cool module for it's good for kind of like the lo-fi type sounds. In fact, one of the effects it has, as you can see, is called lo-fi. But what we can do is we can use, I'll play it straight first, just so you can get a feel of what it sounds like. So we have a low pass and high pass filter. I'll keep this sounding fairly guitar-like, just keep it in the middle just so you can get a flavour for the drive. So this has its own drive. Just balance out those levels. Turn the delay off there and cancel that reverb for now. crank it a bit more. Okay. We also have, I'm going to skip this mag one for a second. We also have lo-fi, which is really kind of a bitrate reducer. So let's just, I'm going to turn it to halfway. Sounds good. Let's crank it massively. Okay, now what I really like about this is the mag, which is basically like fluctuations in wow and flutter from a cassette. I'll crank it so you can really hear it, but it wobbles really nicely. But as I was getting to, one of the same things we've used before, envelope follower, if we stick this into, well, any of these ports, then we can control the amount of it so that it then cleans up. Let's start with the drive. So I can play gently, or I can play hard. But then it cleans up. So you have a stronger effect as the envelope is opened and your attack is sending a hotter signal through your system, and then it cools off quite nicely and you end up with a nice clean signal, which I really, really like. Let's stick that into mag and see how it sounds there. And we'll do the same with lo-fi as well. In fact, you can hear the change in the buzziness of the bitrate reduction as it tails off. Because the greater the effect of the lo-fi, in fact you can see it's set to 0, but you can still hear the effect at first when I first attack the notes. Okay, so let's look at another example of something we can do. Let's go back to, we'll use Ghost again as our main module here. But we're going to use something which is quite fun to do, I think, personally. I'm going to change this to the gate port. Let's use a more sensible cable for this. So I'm going to take the gate from here and I'm going to plug it into the strum of rings, and let's we'll put that into the right hand channel, so we'll put that in there. I'm just going to unplug Ghost for a minute just so we can see what happens. So if you wanted to create a guitar patch which was then, you know, I'm playing a D at the moment, if I wanted to have rings play like a D drone in the background, then we can do that because we just stick a gate in so that when we attack hard enough, we can hear and see, because the LED changes there, that rings will now play that D. And I think that is really cool. There's something very special about doing things like this. Let's go back to, let's use a bit more reverb. Now I think that's very cool. This is tuned to D, but obviously you can tune it to anything you like. But I think I might actually just tune it up an octave. Okay, so I think that's probably given enough of an overview of how I use Eurorack with my guitar. I think it's a really fun kind of experimental, exploratory kind of toolkit to use. So I'm going to leave it there. Enjoy experimenting using Eurorack to process external audio yourself. I've been Rob, thanks very much, and I'll see you next time.